Hey guys, so today I wanted to go back and look at a concept car again, the 2001 Dodge Super 8 Hemi. I always rotate the different types of videos I make, and it's been over a month since I made the last concept car video on the 2007 Dodge Demon Roadster. If you're new to the channel, I do have a few different series of concept cars, like one where I go over 4 to 5 concepts in one video, one where I compare the concept car to its production version, and the ones like today where I go very in depth on one concept and give you a lot more information that I won't have time for in those other series. So let's look at the Super 8 Hemi, which was a very underestimated and very significant concept car for Chrysler. I've tried to do my best with the photos that were available, because they were quite limited. So the Dodge Super 8 Hemi was a rear-wheel drive 4-door sedan concept car that was created by the Dodge brand and first shown off at the 2001 North American International Auto Show in Detroit. The Super 8 name was a play on words with two different meanings. It referred to the Super 8 motion picture camera that was manufactured in 1965 by Kodak for use with the Super 8mm motion picture format, and it also points out the engine under the hood, which was a new Chrysler 5.7-liter engine with 8 cylinders. The Super 8 Hemi came during a time before there was the modern-day Dodge Charger and Chrysler 300 sedans, so Dodge was testing the waters at a possible return to rear-wheel drive sedans and V8 Hemi power with this Super 8 concept. I see this car as the beginning of the shift of American sedans, because up until this point they were all created with passenger comfort and luxury in mind, and performance and design were more of an afterthought. Freeman Thomas, who was Daimler Chrysler's Vice President of Advanced Product Design Strategy, was an American who grew up in Europe, and he was regarded as one of the top automotive designers in the industry. He had some big hits, like the VW Beetle and Audi TT Coupes, while he worked for Audi and Volkswagen. His plan with the Super 8 Hemi was to build a mid-sized rear-wheel drive sedan using the design inspiration from the 1950s, like lots of interior room and comfort like the old 50s cruisers had. He said, quote, "The Dodge Super 8 Hemi embodies the culture and essence of all American optimism," end quote. So taking a deeper look at the exterior design, the Super 8 Hemi combines a bunch of different classic and modern Dodge designs from various SUVs and trucks. Dodge often like to push the boundaries with their concepts and stimulate customers' interest in their new experimental design ideas. And they definitely did that with the wild and out-of-the-box design on this Super 8 Hemi, attracting everyone's attention with its polarizing looks at the 2001 North American International Auto Show. Some people liked the design, or at least enjoyed how unique it was, and others just hated it and thought it was the ugliest thing on earth. I don't think it's a beautiful car to look at, but I do appreciate it because it looks like nothing else we had seen up until that point. And one journalist summed it up best, saying, quote, "This Dodge concept manages to be retro, futuristic, and just plain bizarre all at once," end quote. The front end was what people disliked the most. It had Dodge's crosshair grille, but that was much larger and more obnoxious than those found on the future Dodge vehicles, and that seems to give the hood a very sawed-off look. There's also familiar-looking quad headlights, and it looks like similar designs from those that made it to later models of the Dodge Magnum and Challenger. There's a 50s-style wraparound windshield, reverse front A-pillars, no B-pillars, and an arching C-pillar, creating a very strange look from the side view, but also a look that truly stands out from the rest, which is exactly what Dodge was going for. The roofline quickly slopes downward into a more normal-looking rear end. And as for the side, there are green or teal plastic stakes running along the doors, and those green accents can be found in other places as well, both inside and out. Another cool feature is the suicide doors, providing a totally open view of the cabin without the B-pillars there. Freeman Thomas had more to say about the design, as he said, quote, "The concept's bold, in-your-face design shows our ability to embrace our love for the sedan and meld it with invigorating execution and technological advancement. With its distinctive tall stance, Hemi powertrain, and telematics applications throughout, the Super 8 symbolizes everything we loved about sedans then, plus everything we need now," end quote. While the exterior was a major focal point, the interior of the car also had plenty to offer. The interior had a very retro design to it in order to invoke nostalgia. Interior designer Bill Chergosky spoke about that, saying, quote, "The Dodge Super 8 Hemi's interior conveys a certain nostalgic optimism expressed in a modern, purposeful design. We not only borrow design cues from cars of the 50s, but other evocative aspects from that era, such as jukeboxes and diners," end quote. The interior had lots of room for passengers and also tons of technology. Daimler Chrysler called it the passenger priority design, which meant panoramic seating for the driver and passengers. Instead of other lower sedans of this era, the seating was much higher to give all passengers a more in-control feeling, and the rear passenger seats were higher than the front to create a movie-like theater seating setting in the cabin. Bench seats are found anchored to the floor in the front and back, and they are able to slide around on a custom rail system. According to Chergosky, quote, "At first glance, the seats appear to be floating in air. With support coming only from the rail system, the lack of a middle support creates a spacious, bridge-like form. Not only does this add to the interior storage capacity, but it also allows for easy folding and unfolding of the seats." End quote. The rest of the interior had brushed and painted aluminum, air vents shaped like a jet engine, a simple 3-spoke wood and plastic steering wheel with an aluminum frame, and braided steel cables that run behind the instrument panel. The visible transmission tunnel running throughout the cabin is awesome, and looks like a jet engine coming right through the floorboards. Combine all that with the color palette and overall shape, and the inside really does look like an old diner with a jukebox, just like the designers were going for. There was also lots of technology, starting with the 6.4-inch screen Infotronic infotainment system in the center console. This system had many unique features for its time, like a navigation system, internet-based real-time weather and traffic updates, email, and access to your internet-enabled home appliances and security cameras. All of the features such as audio, climate control, and phone could be controlled through speech recognition and text-to-speech telematics technology, so that was basically one of the earlier forms of Siri. The Super 8 Hemi also got Sirius satellite radio with over 100 channels. The rear seat passengers were treated to two 8.4-inch LCD touchscreens that were mounted on the backrest of the front seats, and those rear screens had access to many features as well, like real-time trip status, a map display, estimated time of arrival to the destination, and an optional trivia game that you could play with other passengers or people in nearby vehicles. There was also an application that allowed you to wirelessly transfer audio and video files between your home computer and the Super 8 Hemi when it was parked in your driveway or garage. A lot of these features probably wouldn't have made it to a production vehicle at the time, but this was definitely the first step to Chrysler perfecting the popular Uconnect systems that are found in all their vehicles today. As for performance, as we briefly talked about, the Super 8 marked the return of the Hemi name. This car came with the 5.7-liter V8 Hemi, which was a work-in-progress engine at the time as well, since it wasn't out in 2001. Chrysler did end up releasing this 5.7 Hemi in 2003 for the Dodge Ram trucks, and it has been around ever since. This 5.7 Hemi was projected to make 353 horsepower and 395 pound-feet of torque, and it got paired with a 4-speed automatic with auto stick that was operated using buttons instead of a traditional shifter. That 4-speed was a 45 RFE, taken from a Jeep Grand Cherokee, and it had some slightly modified software to accommodate for the push-button shifter. The rear differential was also taken from a Mercedes-Benz S-Class. This was a rear-wheel drive sedan that weighed 3,600 pounds, and it had some good performance numbers. So 0 to 60 happens in 5.7 seconds, the quarter mile in 14.1 seconds, and a top speed of 154 miles per hour was possible. The wheelbase was quite long at 117.4 inches, and an overall length was 186 inches, while the track was 62.5 inches wide in the front and 62.8 inches in the rear. The front suspension has modified McPherson struts and billet aluminum control arms, while the rear has 5 link coilover shocks. The wheels were large and fat, 22 by 10 inches, with 255mm tires. As for the brakes, up front there are cross-drilled and slotted rotors with Wilwood 4-piston calipers, while the rear rotors are more basic with just dual-piston calipers. John Rundell is the former director of concept and specialty vehicle programs at Daimler Chrysler, spoke about those brakes, saying, quote, "The car has way more brake than it needs, but it just has wonderful aesthetic appeal," end quote. The Super 8 Hemi was ultimately a design exercise, and this specific car wasn't ever going to make it to production, but it did resemble the preview and first step for Dodge for many things to come, like bringing back the rear-wheel drive chassis, the Hemi V8, and improving the infotainment system in subsequent years. It was also groundbreaking because it was one of the first concept cars for Chrysler built using computers and science rather than relying on more traditional methods like sketch paper and clay. For the rear-wheel drive chassis and the V8, this was basically an experiment from Dodge to see what they could build, what kind of performance they could offer, and how that would work. It was a preview of the first generation Chrysler 300 and then later Dodge Charger, which were both rear-wheel drive sedans that made their way to the market in 2005 and 2006. Those sedans owe a lot of their success and foundation to the Super 8 Hemi. What was the original plan for the rear-wheel drive platforms? Well, at the time, Rich Schaum, who was the Daimler Chrysler Executive VP of Product Development, gave his insights. So when he was asked about a rear-wheel drive sedan like the Super 8, he said, quote, "I think many of the people in the industry are changing their opinion about rear-wheel drive. Today's tires are far superior in terms of their all-season performance. Combine that with traction control and stability control systems. Those wonderful technologies really begin to close the gap between rear-wheel drive and front-wheel drive as far as foul weather traction. It's clearly coming back. We have concluded that yes, there is a way to make rear-wheel drive work for a $35,000 to $40,000 vehicle, although nothing's approved," end quote. As for the return of the Hemi itself, After seeing this concept, there was a buzz as to whether the engine would actually return to the Dodge and Chrysler lineup. Remember, at this time, no one knew exactly what the plan was for the Hemi, and it generated a lot of speculation and excitement. Schaum spoke about this as well, confirming the production plan for the Hemi V8 and giving hope for some rear-wheel drive sedans that were to come. He said, quote, "Anybody can do an all-aluminum double overhead cam, state-of-the-art high-specific output V6 engine, and it'll be costly. But why can't I have a hemispherical combustion chamber high-technology V8? What would happen if we applied all the latest technology to a central cam engine? If we gave higher value at lower cost to our customer, what's wrong with that solution? The Vortec V8 at GM is a perfect example. There's no doubt we're doing the Hemi." End quote. So this prototype Hemi was supposed to make its return on the new third generation Dodge Ram 1500, just with less power, while the 353 horsepower version was supposed to show up for the 2003 models. And it ended up being that this 5.7 made it for the 2003 models, with 345 horsepower and 375 pound-feet of torque for the Ram 1500s, and it has been used ever since in many different models, like the 300, Charger, Challenger, Grand Cherokee, Ram 1500, Durango, Magnum, and more. To add a few more points, as I talked about earlier, the bold infotainment system at the time definitely helped Chrysler to advance their technology and create the Uconnect systems that we have today. And finally, I want to talk about how this concept was built. Traditionally, Daimler Chrysler had used art in the form of sketches in clay when putting together concept vehicles, going piece by piece on the drawing board. For this one, they used a top-secret new form of engineering software to plan out every millimeter of the chassis, suspension, and powertrain before getting Metal Crafters Inc. in California to build and construct the car. William Presley, the supervisor of concept and specialty vehicle programs, gave us more info, saying, quote, "We believe in the use and power of information technology. If you can build 72 cars in an hour in the assembly plant and have pieces made up there that have never touched each other in the real world, then you should be able to do it in one concept car. The last thing you want to do is spend a lot of time cobbling and mocking up. You want to go straight from concept to creation." End quote. I usually have more to say in this portion of these concept videos, but as we've been over, this concept wasn't really meant for production so much as for Chrysler to try out an uncommon and extraordinary design and see what a rear-wheel drive sedan would look like and how it would perform and work with the 5.7-liter V8 Hemi. So Chrysler got the world's attention with this car, used it as an experiment, and went on to do great things with rear-wheel drive sedans and Hemi V8s just a few years later. The Super 8 Hemi will live on as it was made into a scale model by Hot Wheels for the 2005 Drop Top series, and it was also featured in the video game Midnight Club 3 Dub Edition Remix. Well, that's the end of this video, guys. What did you think of the Dodge Super 8 Hemi? Hopefully you enjoyed it, and make sure to like and subscribe for more Mopar content, and let me know if you do want to see other concept car videos like this one. I'll see you in the next video.